I think it's safe to say that we're all about tired of the multiverse, right? The concept of multiple universes or parallel Earths existing should make for some interesting storytelling that can be used to explore the vast lore surrounding our favorite superheroes. But lately it's just been used as a gimmick, whether it would be to satisfy live service nonsense or more notably have an actor come back who played a character 20 years ago or something. There are instances where the concept of the multiverse does work even if it is used for fan servicey elements, because not all fan service is bad. Then there are instances where it's used for the sole purpose of corporate greed or to justify some really questionable decisions. In the context of how DC has been using the multiverse over the past few decades, you can't imagine how often it's been used for retcons, soft reboots, or even full-blown reboots and continuity resets. It's always the fail-safe option to turn to whenever a comic continuity becomes too convoluted, or it's used as a way to clean up a universe, whether in film, television, or animation. There are literally two adaptations of the Crisis on Infinite Earths event with the CW Arrowverse and the animated Tomorrowverse trilogy that wrapped up recently. A thing I'm noticing with these multiversal crossover events in media is that they always like to connect to previously established DC shows, movies, or continuities, like the cameos seen in The Flash, the other universes seen in Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths, or the countless references in the CW Crisis event. But a major problem with that is many of these DC projects have separate and conflicting rules on how the multiverse works compared to others. The Crisis event in the Arrowverse really aimed to connect itself with several other live-action DC projects, whether those shows already ended or were still airing at the time outside the CW network. Say what you want about this event or the Arrowverse in its entirety, but their Crisis had a much better build-up than the Tomorrowverse animated version, as in the animated movies, we didn't spend much time with these characters, so the threat of the multiverse ending or any of those characters dying didn't have as much impact. The build-up to Crisis was seen in the entirety of Arrow's final season, and stories centered on some of these characters had been airing for about 7 years or so prior to the crossover. A culmination of shows airing you may or may not have been watching at the time, like The Flash, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, Arrow, Black Lightning, Batwoman, all of them boys. This is probably the first time in live action where they attempt to connect a multitude of DC movies and shows in a major way. The basic premise is very similar to the comics where the Anti-Monitor wants to destroy all of reality, and you see some Earths get destroyed thanks to an antimatter wave. The ending is also very similar to the comic where they combine several of the established Earths into one to create a new Earth. This is how Supergirl and Black Lightning were brought onto the new main Earth, as their shows took place on separate Earths or realities pre-Crisis. The very beginning of the event's first episode shows the different Earths across the multiverse dealing with the antimatter wave. The live-action Titan show is set in this multiverse, designated as Earth 9, where you see Hawk and Jason Todd as Robin. A lot of people think Doom Patrol and Titans take place in the same universe, since there was a Beast Boy Doom Patrol centric episode in the first season of Titans, but the Doom Patrol series actually takes place on a separate Earth. This is seen in the Crisis event where the Doom Patrol is celebrating at the end, with their Earth being designated as Earth 21. Before the Crisis crossover, Earth 2 was a parallel Earth seen in The Flash and other CW shows with Jesse Quick, and the Earth where Hunter Zolomon or Zoom came from. It ended up getting destroyed, but when the multiverse was restored at the end, Earth 2 became the home of the Stargirl TV show that was airing at the time. Earth 19 is essentially the Swamp Thing show from 2019 that sadly only lasted one season before getting cancelled. Earth 167, I guess, was a version of the Smallville continuity where we see Clark Kent and Lois Lane settling down in the cat farm. The Supergirl versions of Superman and Lois were searching for the Paragon of Truth, a version of Superman that could help save the multiverse alongside the rest of the Paragons, before it was revealed that the Paragon was Brandon Routh as Superman from Earth 75. The Paragons were essentially 7 heroes across the multiverse that had to band together to stop the threat of the Anti-Monitor. Beforehand, Supergirl's Lex Luthor got a hold of the Book of Destiny with the sole purpose of traveling to other Earths to kill Superman.
You are Clark Kent, right?
And there are 7 people in all of space and time who can supposedly...
Lex Luthor is gonna try to kill you.
I know the president was in town.
You will always be my greatest enemy on any Earth.
So what do you want?
To kill you, of course, and every version of you across the multiverse. It's kryptonite.
Which has no effect on me ever since I gave up my powers. That is worth more than any superpower.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the general consensus is among people who've watched Smallville about the cameo scene, but This scene is some dog dookie.
A 2-pack of ass!
What do you mean Clark Kent gave up his powers to live a normal life? And why is he so nonchalant about Lex Luthor being the president of the United States? I'm in the middle of watching Smallville for the first time, and there's literally an entire episode in the 7th season where Jor-El shows Clark an alternate reality or timeline where he never crash landed in Smallville as a baby. In said reality, nearly everything went wrong and Lex became president where he caused a worldwide nuclear war. Do you know how many times Clark has lost his powers or someone else had his powers for a brief period, whether it be Bobby Drake Iceman or friggin' Lana Lang, which would make them go insane or wreak havoc, making Clark recognize the importance of using his abilities to help the people in need? Blatant character assassination if I've ever seen it, good god. Like, you literally cannot convince me that this is canon to the show. Anyway, tangent over. Earth 203 represents a version of the live-action Birds of Prey show, featuring Ashley Scott as Huntress running across rooftops trying to deal with the antimatter wave destroying everything in its path. I don't know how many of you have seen the Lucifer show on Netflix. I mean, I had a good time with it, and I guess that show takes place on Earth 666. Totally not on the nose with the numbering there. You see Mia Smoke, John Diggle, and John Constantine visit Lucifer Morningstar as Constantine needed some help with magic. This was established before the actual Crisis crossover, but they'd cemented a Barry Allen from Earth 90, played by John Wesley Shipp, which was in reference to the Flash TV series back in the 1990s, so pretty much back in the ancient times. One of the most notable cameos in the entire event was when Ezra Miller's Flash popped up when Barry was traveling throughout the Speed Force.
What are you doing here?
I'll tell you that when you tell me where here is. It seems freaking comfy.
Yours is pretty cool.
Smooth.
Seems safe and
breathable. Found Barry Allen. No! What does that mean? I told Victor this was possible.
This isn't the only instance where these shows have tried to connect themselves with the DCEU to some capacity. We see a bit of multiverse hopping in Titans Season 4, where Beast Boy hops to different Earths thanks to his connection to the Red. The Red is a mystical force that connects all animal life in the universe. A lot of the animal-based characters in DC, like Beast Boy, Animal Man, or Vixen, draw their abilities from the Red. Through his access to the Red, he sees a bunch of portal windows to a multitude of characters, like being able to see Grant Gustin's Flash, accidentally hops into Stargirl's Earth and has a short interaction with her, reconfirming the shared multiverse with the appearances of Swamp Thing and footage of Zachary Levi's Shazam fighting Dr. Sivana from the DCEU. You also hear dialogue from Harley from the Harley Quinn animated series and characters from a bunch of other DC projects. Connecting to the DCEU was already contradictory with how the emergence of the multiverse is explained in both universes, or more specifically how time travel works. Time travel seen in the Arrowverse follows a more linear approach where you go back in time and alter something, the future will be altered as a result, which is seen in the Flashpoint episode where Barry saved his mother. Once Barry was in the Flashpoint timeline and realized how messed up everything was, he tried to go back and prevent himself from stopping the Reverse Flash from killing his mother, hoping that everything would return to normal. Everything was mostly fine afterwards, but there were still some differences after the Flashpoint problem was solved, like Cisco's brother being dead or Caitlin now becoming a metahuman. Jay Garrick from Earth 3 uses the broken mug analogy to convey this logic, with how if you go back in time to alter the past, it would be like breaking a coffee mug, which represents the space-time continuum. You can try to go back and fix said coffee mug or timeline, but it'll never end up exactly the same.
This coffee cup right here as the space-time continuum. Whenever you go back in time, it breaks. You could reset the timeline, but no matter how hard you try, it's never going to be exactly how it was.
On top of that, the show goes into detail on how time travel doesn't affect other Earths or universes outside of the one the speedster inhabits. So when Barry created Flashpoint, Earths like Earth 2 weren't affected in any way. The way time travel is explained in the Flash movie in the DCEU, however, is a completely different story. It's a lot more associated with the creation of the multiverse in parallel universes. Michael Keaton's Batman uses spaghetti as an analogy to debunk the linear form of time travel seen in a lot of movies and shows like in CW's The Flash, where usually if you change something in the past, it creates a new separate timeline that branches off from the original one, leading to a new present and future. But here, Bruce Wayne is saying that's not how time travel actually works. According to his spaghetti theory, when you change the past, you don't just create a new future, you create a new past as well. Imagine time as a bunch of spaghetti noodles where if you change something, you jump onto a whole new noodle representing a timeline. And this new Noodle has its own past and future that is different from the original. The effects of your change don't just move forward in time, they also ripple backward, altering the past as well. Time isn't just one line, it can twist and turn in many directions like spaghetti. Anytime you change something, you're essentially creating entirely new universes. Some might be very similar, while others couldn't be any more different. Thus, you get the multiverse.
When you go back and change the past, you put yourself on a whole nother strand of spaghetti. New future, new past. It goes both ways. What you did was you changed the future and you changed the past. But you eventually end up with a multiverse. Some strands run almost parallel, others that are just wildly divergent.
I think we can all agree that the cameos in this movie were complete dog water. You mean to tell me that they had time to zombify Christopher Reeve as Superman, yet they couldn't find the time for Grant Gustin as the Flash to pop up?
To slap the shit out you, nigga.
If you wanted to include an iconic version of a hero as part of your established universe, just use archive footage. The CW did this with their crossover event, nobody would have complained. So you can already see the problem in these mediums trying to connect with one another when they can't even keep a consistent basis on how time travel or the multiverse operate. DC animation is where you'll see a lot of references to other iconic DC projects that are in the same medium. For example, you'll see in My Adventures with Superman the DCEU version being referred to as Earth 508, yet in the Tomorrowverse Crisis event, Earth 508 is the goddamn Super Friends and a version of the DCEU is Earth 12. The animated Crisis on Infinite Earths trilogy follows a slightly different approach to the creation of the multiverse when compared to the comics and the Arrowverse. I already did a video going in depth on part 3 and how the multiverse came to be and its relation to the previous DCEMU with the Justice League Dark Apocalypse War and Darkseid. Their explanation is that Constantine's attempt to send Barry Allen back in time to kill Darkseid at the end of Apocalypse War shattered reality, as Darkseid was a fixed point in time. Every decision made afterward caused a branched reality with infinite possibilities, creating infinite Earths. And it actually hones in on the fact that the multiverse is problematic and shouldn't even exist.
This man is from an Earth that existed before our multiverse, decimated by Darkseid. He was a fixed point in time.
And didn't change the universe, it shattered it.
Every critical decision created a new possible reality.
The multiverse is expanding geometrically.
Infinite Earths.
The universe wasn't designed to support infinite variations of itself.
The antimatter waves are seen destroying Earths, representative of the Teen Titans cartoon and the previously mentioned DCEU. Now, me saying those aren't the actual legitimate DCEU and Teen Titans versions isn't me being in denial or inhaling large amounts of copium. It doesn't really make sense as you see BTAS designs for Batman and Joker, yet Justice League / Justice League Unlimited designs for everyone else. You start to see a pattern with a lot of these movies and shows that try to incorporate the multiverse. Like, you're not giving me a whole lot of reasons to legitimately believe that's DCEU Batman, or that's the legitimate DCEU Barry Allen if that universe says otherwise on how the multiverse works. Don't even get me started on how the multiverse is used in the comics. I can't even go over it all. Literally, the sole purpose of the Crisis on Infinite Earths comic was to reboot the continuity as it was getting too convoluted with the numerous Earths and realities that emerged thanks to the initial concept of the multiverse. So they gave rid of the multiverse entirely and essentially merged all the 5 remaining Earths after most of them were destroyed thanks to the Anti-Monitor into one called New Earth. It gave writers the chance to modernize characters, update their origins, change some history, the whole 9 yards. Then about 20 years later came Infinite Crisis, which featured some of the survivors of the original Crisis event, such as Superboy Prime and Alexander Luthor from pre-Crisis Earth Prime and Earth 3, trying to restore the multiverse in order to create the perfect Earth through trial and error, combining different newly formed Earths as they viewed the current New Earth as too bleak and melancholic. Infinite Crisis also served as a soft reboot for the main Earth. Those events pretty much undid the OG Crisis event by bringing back the multiverse entirely, only this time it's in the form of 52 Earths instead of infinite variations. Then the New 52 came in with a hard reset after Flashpoint, where they yet again re-established the parallel Earths, but they're now completely different from the pre-New 52 multiverse. Editorial couldn't help themselves, then eventually expanded the multiverse again to where there were once again infinite Earths out there. Down the road after DC Rebirth, they start introducing crazy concepts like, hey, alongside the regular multiverse, there's an entire dark multiverse of evil Batman or something. Or the idea of there being an omniverse with multiple multiverses coexisting with one another. It's like, alright bucko, wrap it up.
That is one big pile of shit.
Trying to say every story ever told is now canon by implying there's multiple multiverses out there, infinite multiverses, each containing their own infinite Earths and realities. It's like every few years or so there's some multiversal crossover event. that leads to an inevitable relaunch or maybe even a softer reboot. Ever since the New 52, it's been like, hey, here's Convergence, DC Rebirth, and Doomsday Clock, and Dark Knight's Metal, Death Metal, Infinite Frontier, Dawn of DC, and they're doing a new initiative later this year with some new creative teams for some of their ongoing titles and whatnot. I think it's best if they just take a very long break from using the multiverse in any major way for these future movies and TV shows. The general audience is already getting tired of it. Nearly every medium out there, even if it's non-Marvel or DC related, is trying to get in on the multiverse trend, despite it not being a new concept at all. I don't want the new DCU to lead to another Crisis event or have the Anti-Monitor or someone of that scale be like the Thanos equivalent for the first 10 years, culminating in some giant multiversal crossover. Hey, maybe Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck can come back in a Justice League Crisis movie in the DCU.
Which
no.
Is, I mean, come on,
no.
Give it up.
No.
It's even more ridiculous in the source material, since they can't make up their minds on what they want the multiverse to even be. Okay, we got rid of the multiverse, so there is only one Earth, to make it simple, only to completely undo that decision 20 some odd years later and expand it so that there's infinite Earths again. Let's go even further and suggest that every story ever told is now canon to some degree by introducing the idea of multiple multiverses. That'll definitely not confuse the reader at all. It's just too much at this point, man. Them folk at DC got too much dip on their chip. Put the multiverse to bed.